Good afternoon, guys. It's 1:30 here in the UK. I hope everybody is well. I've got Yazin Lewis on today. She's a art of timing expert, astrologer, speaker. She's a writer. She's wrote books and very good astrologer, I must admit. So we're just waiting for her now. I'll get Michelle to tell her, and let's. So we're just waiting for Yazine now. I'll keep. I'll keep on getting her name wrong. Everybody else has got her name. Hello.
Hello, love. Hi.
I. We just started. I've just been telling everybody a bit about you.
Okay.
Could you tell us what was the idea in the beginning, Yazin, about you kind of like starting all this, about astrology, about about the planets and everything? I just want to kind of like really,
Yeah.
yeah.
Okay. Gosh, just going back in time, in the mists of time. Uh, well, I was 27 when I went self-employed because I really wanted to work for myself, as I think many people do. And I think back in 1979, it was quite easy to do that and to know there was always jobs around. It was a much easier time for that. I'd always been interested in the maps of the heavens, if you like, simple astronomy as a child. And I always looked up at the skies when I went out in the evening, probably falling over a few times, like didn't see where I was going. But I always did that. Most people don't even bother to look up, do they? And at the
No.
moment, with the very clear skies we're having in England, clear skies in the daytime and at night, very frosty, the tapestry canopy of the stars is beautiful at the moment. Absolutely beautiful. And we've got Venus and Mars and Mercury very close together. They're very visible, shining brightly. And I think there's a kind of comfort in that those planetary cycles are consistent. And in a world where there's rapid change and uncertainty and a great deal of turmoil at the moment, even tragedy, thinking of the Turkish earthquake, I think that to have that constancy, that regularity of patterns and cycles, is comforting in a sense. It's like the cycles of nature.
Yeah.
And ideally, the cycles of our body, if we obeyed them better, where we push ourselves with our brain too much and we wonder why we get tired or we get ill. But going back to your question about why, I'd always been fascinated. I wanted to be an explorer. Don't think I was physically strong enough to do what that takes. And I was very interested in how people thought and psychology. And in a way, psychology could have been a route I traveled along, but didn't. And so in my 20s, I realized that one could learn astrology, that it was a navigational tool for understanding our cycles and choosing perhaps the best timing, like going with the tide rather than against it, which doesn't take away free will at all, quite the opposite. Quite the opposite. So I did a training course. I did it in a time when there were no computers, so for astrology programs, certainly. And I did all the maths and logarithms myself. And for a little girl at school who was hopeless at maths, this is a real toughie. I had to kind of really struggle with that. But I did it. And very recently, I had a client approach me from around about 1980 and through somebody else, to put it indirect, because obviously email addresses and so on weren't really around till much later. And I'd changed countries a few times. So, and she said to me, you did my chart back in 1980, and I was 22 then. And she actually attached to the email a picture of the hand-drawn chart. So, of course, I went, oh, my goodness, I better go and check that out on the computer, which is absolutely accurate mathematically with the astronomy of that date of birth and time. And it was spot on, which I was very relieved to know. And she's coming to have an update of her chart all these years later on Monday. So I think that learning my craft with the maths, hand drawing a chart, it kind of brings it alive. And I just felt that whereas I thought, well, star signs, sun signs, whether we're Scorpio, Sagittarius like yourself, or other things are, very general. It's a mammoth map, that moment of birth. And it's a kind of mirror of our inner world, the clock that was set in motion when we were born, and links in very much with our ancestry, our genetics, which makes sense, and our potential. And it's a great responsibility to be doing this work. So 44 years on the 1st of March this year, 44 years I'll have been doing this professionally. I still feel I'm learning.
Yeah.
It's amazing navigational map to understand ourselves better through.
Yeah. In the past,
that's how I took it up, really, because I was just fascinated. Never thought I'd make a living out of it, but kind of it chose me in a weird sort of way.
Yeah, it did. Yeah. In the past, you've been to some exciting places like Dubai, New York, even around Europe. What's the best place you've ever been?
Well, best. I have places where I feel my heart is at home. I'm sure we all find that, because I think places, even cities, are like people. We can be indifferent to them. They're okay, or we can love them or dislike them. Yeah. And I'm sure we all know that. So countries very much are the same. And I love the warm weather. So I love Italy. I loved Oman when I went there and worked there. I loved Oman. And as you know, in recent years, I've been to India and the South Tibet Plateau. The last one, the South Tibet Plateau, which actually is owned by India, but they don't seem to get much involved. The Tibetans have stayed on after many escaped, to different places in India and different countries when China took over Tibet. But this area of Tibet still stays as it is, with the people speaking the Tibetan language, the customs, the Mahayana Buddhism, which is a very non-judgmental, very compassionate, if you like, religion. And you have to go over the big passes to get into that place. And as a child, I had a big dream of going to Tibet. But once China had the majority of it, I did not want to do that. And it's still going on. It's horrendous. The ransacking of monasteries, torture even. And it's almost impossible now to get out of Tibet because there's so many Chinese guards on the border, so many. So Tibet, South Tibet for me was like coming home. These are my mountains, And I did voluntary work there because I went with a lady who really, in a way, saved that valley, which is quite medieval, and created a hospital, community centre, school there. And it is in much better shape. And I sponsor a little girl from there for her education until she's 18.
Oh,
So, yeah. And I've just come back literally a few days ago, still jet lagged, from southern India. Southern India was interesting because I never really wanted to go there, but it's a very gentle place. I use the word happy. What is happiness? But always smiling, the people, the good manners, something I noticed. And even though the traffic's chaotic, it's very adroit. People don't hit one another.
yeah.
And I've been there recently to do some voluntary work and also to go through Kerala, which is highly, I'd call it advanced. The women are treated equally. The girls have a great education. It's mainly Christian now. There is Muslim and Hindu, but it's mainly Christian. And I went on the houseboats, the old houseboats on the backwaters of Kerala, which is a rather magical experience. And then I went up to this Tibetan monastery in an area called Bailakapur, where there's a huge Tibetan settlement. You see, the Tibetans got out in 1959 from Tibet when China took it over. And I think was it Prime Minister, it was Nehru at the time, he gave that land to the Tibetans. And it's about 15, call them villages, communities there, and a few monasteries. And I was very privileged with my friend who's helped a lot with the sponsorship of young monks who've escaped to for their education. She gets sponsors to, provide that income to educate them. And I stayed there several days, and that was very special, very peaceful. So I have great love of southern India, its gentleness, its quietness, its beauty.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah. So yeah, no, I think things change, don't you find, Steve? We can always love people we've known a long while, even our family and so on, but we bring new things into our lives as we grow, and new places talk to us.
Oh,
Like
yeah, definitely. Yeah,
spirit of the
definitely.
place, you know.
Yeah, yeah. It's definitely. I find it. I find it if I go away in the UK.
Yes.
If I go, I pick certain places where I can go away, where I can spend some quietness to
Mm.
and reflect and and sort myself out.
Yeah.
No, but it's like the last like what, about 5 months now. I've been kind of like having a break from this, and I
Yes.
and I really needed it. I
Good.
needed to get myself together and sort myself out. Um, I'm 90%, but I'm still not there.
Yeah.
Um, with your kind of work and what you're doing, do
Yes.
you also kind of like do you recommend like yoga or
Yeah.
exercise?
Well, yes, I think just logically, common sense wise, our bodies are they're not machines. And as you've discovered very wisely, because obviously you're very wise, that you need it time out to restore, yeah, to
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
rejuvenate,
yeah,
like recreation, to recreate oneself, yeah. And because otherwise our bodies do tell us very big signs, give us very big signs to slow down. And it's really only the brain that doesn't.
yeah,
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 everything else in nature, dance, music, the body knows it has to have pauses
yeah,
and
yeah.
conversation. So what you've done is to actually give yourself that pause so you can live longer and bring new life into what you're doing, and honor yourself as well in the process. Because we all know the world will get on without us. It's no good saying, that actually, no, I've got to keep going that bit longer. How will they cope without me? Blah, blah, blah. People say that all the time. I see particularly women. And actually, people do survive very well without us if we're out of action for a while or we die. And it gives opportunities for people to step into our shoes a bit, to discover roles they haven't lived before, and not just to be looked after. So yeah, I think you're right that we need to do these things. And yoga is not something I'm very good at or particularly want to do. It doesn't work with my body, but it does work for many people, and it's been proven to lower blood pressure, to make one more flexible, to not have so much arthritis, all sorts of things. And I think the ancients really knew their stuff that way.
Well, I've done chanting before.
Oh,
Years ago, I went to a place. My friend of mine said, um, "We're going to Totnes today," and I said, "Right, okay, what we're going to do in Totnes?" She said, "We're going to go to this workshop," and I thought, "All right then."
yeah.
And all of a sudden, this bloke was going, "Yo," and we were doing that. And then after that, we were doing a bit of chanting, and I'm thinking, I've got to get out of here.
Yeah, I know the feeling.
You know what I mean? But
Yeah, I'm a bit like that.
actually, afterwards, I quite enjoyed it,
Mm,
and I stayed quite enjoyed it. But I did have a good laugh right for it because I just couldn't stop laughing. You know what I mean? It's
I know. Well, that happens. And I think also, there's a sense of mindfulness. We hear that word a lot, being very present.
yeah,
And I
yeah,
think it's very, very valuable. And having just come back from the East, to the West, there's such a difference in how people approach life. And I think in the East, they do have the sense of being present more. Okay, they can be a little bit fatalistic, but it's much more about acceptance. Because sometimes you've got to accept something before it changes, or allow
yeah,
it to have its say, and then we
yeah.
can move on. Otherwise, it rattles around in our heads forever. But certainly mindfulness. I mean, I attended, or sat outside, I should say, the places there where these monks were training 27 years to be a geshe, which is a teacher of Buddhist scriptures and so forth. And they go and do service to help people to work. It's a very, we call it the Dharma, the kind of the work, the service we're here to do, which in a way is a bit like, I think like Christianity as well, regardless of what God, is being called on. And I think that I sat outside where they were doing what they call their prayers, and it's been going on for ages. It's an amazing chanting. It's a resonance. And I sort of started fidgeting. I can't sit still for long, and certainly can't
Mm.
sit cross-legged. I can't do that. Although I'm very flexible in my body, to cross-legged was something I've never been able to do. But anyway, I sat there, and it was incredibly powerful. and very moving. And I was very present. And I think it definitely is helpful, you know. And what you've
Mm,
just described, with if the right motivation, intention is behind it, it takes you out of time, if you like, and gets you more in tune with your body, your
yeah,
intention, many things. Yeah. So it doesn't matter what practice we use, but it is quite good, particularly to start the day, maybe with some deeper breathing. Yeah. And I set an intent for the day after I wake up, an intention. I say, my intention is to walk the path of, and I let a word come to me. It could be compassion, it could be contentment, it could be, it could be many things. Uh, Gratitude, that's a good one to work with. And you put that
yeah.
thought out, yes, and bring it from the heart. And I really feel it makes a mammoth difference to that first step into the day, rather than your mind full of all sorts of thoughts as we get, you know, and worries. And we scrabble out of bed, grab the phone or whatever we do. And it need only take a minute or two, you know, to do this.
Yeah, I used to be a bit panicky. I used to get out of bed, and the first call I had to do was, it's been thinking of my mind all day. I've got to
Yes.
kind of like pick it up, answer it, and deal with it.
Yeah. I know.
So
Get it done. Yeah, I know.
yeah, yeah, you got to get it done. Or there's sometimes where you, well, in the past where you kind of try to kind of like out somebody, but then
Hmm.
you try to contact somebody, and they're just giving you all the wrong information. You're going
Yeah.
back to the other person, and you think, "Oh my gosh, this is not on." Things like that, and it's kind of like, I think we all need to come together,
Hmm.
show a bit of respect and honesty to each other,
Yes.
you know,
Absolutely.
and grow with each other. But we live in a sad world at the moment
Oh,
where
don't we?
a lot of evil's around, isn't it? So
Yeah, there really is, and that word does come up strongly at the moment. And a lot of division of us and them, and a great deal of fear. I mean, you know, the fear the media is putting over is unbelievable. There's never any good news put out. And I don't mean we should be in Pollyanna land and just say everything's hunky dory when it isn't. But
mm,
the fear that's being put on people, and if we can't do anything about it, like we can do something about the earthquake in Turkey, a little bit, like donations and other things, and certainly through our thoughts. Um, there can be a feeling of helplessness, and I think that I've been talking to quite a lot of people since I've been back who are feeling quite low, because we do pick up on the what we call the web of energy, the collective energy around us, you know, a lot. And there has been a great deal of uncertainty, and it seems to be one thing after the other, whether it's in our personal lives or, you know, the bigger picture.
yeah,
So I think,
yeah.
as you're saying about some sort of individual practice to start the day and doing your little bit to help, it doesn't have to be major, just doing something small, because it's like the butterfly effect, the ripple effect. It hits the bigger picture,
Oh yeah, of course.
don't you
You
think?
know, oh yeah, of course. I'll tell you what. I love talking to you because I tell you why. You're very. I'm trying to. I was just about to say. I was just about to say, like, you know, how do you start your day? And all of a sudden, you just comes out with it.
Did I?
I'm sure. I'm sure you can read my mind. But
Oh,
how do you start the day? Spiritually. Do you do it spiritually?
well, as I just described, I mean, I do believe in a universal spirit. I believe in an afterlife. I believe we're here to grow, to be of service, also to enjoy being on the planet. We often forget that. It's a wonderful opportunity to be here. And to look after ourselves, which we don't do enough of. Some people overdo that, but the
Yeah.
majority of us, we wouldn't be so unkind to our friends as we are to ourselves quite often. Yeah. So
Yeah.
I think it's not so much spiritual. I think we're all spiritual beings in human form. So when I hear people say, "Oh, I'm very spiritual," I try not to giggle. You know.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
really find that expression weird. Um, so I do believe in prayer. When I go to sleep, I do put out gratitude. I don't make a big thing of it, you know, but gratitude for my day, things that have happened, and
Mm.
to people who are suffering in the world. But obviously, people I know, there's a lot of people around me who are ill. And I think the older we get, the more that's going to happen, isn't it?
Oh
So
yeah. Yeah.
people leave. And so I do something simple because I'm not a meditator. I just can't. It's just not me. But some people, you know, that's very important to them. They can do hours of it. But no, what I described as the intention for today, and I always ask God, Universal Spirit, help me to be kinder, and also to guide my thoughts, to think before I think,
Mm,
and to pause before I speak, and to be aware before I act. I think those three things are quite important: thinking, speaking, acting, action. And to actually ask for that guidance to be more aware of those things.
right. Okay.
And of course,
Um,
it doesn't always follow through. I always get it wrong and get impulsive or say something I shouldn't or act. But you know what? Sometimes it really helps.
but don't we all get, but we all get things wrong anyway, don't
Of
we?
course we
We're
do.
not
We're
perfect.
human.
Yeah,
We're
of course we
human.
do.
We're
Yeah,
spiritual beings in a sense, part of God, having a human experience, and we are. And actually, it's nothing worse than trying to be too perfect. It's very boring when someone does that.
yeah. Have you got any workshops or anything that's coming up where people can kind of come to you, or
Oh, yeah.
anything going on at the moment?
Well, I'm not doing any. I'd love to do more workshops and talks. I've taken a bit of a break from that, or it just happened.
Yeah,
Doing this is wonderful. It gets me back into the groove, as they say, being back a few days from India. Um, obviously, my basic work and bread and butter, if you like, money is my clients.
yeah, yeah,
And a lot of that's on referral recommendation. I've got a website, ysane, my name, ysane.com. So there's a
yeah.
lot there about astrology. And I'm about to write a blog about the upcoming astrological influences, which can be useful to know about to help
Right.
us move into this coming year, because it is quite a major one, 2023. Some of these slow moving planets, very slow, Pluto, Saturn, are changing sign. They're like, I call this a transition year.
Yeah. Do you believe
Mm.
in the papers lately they're saying that they find these black holes, and they say that they also saying these stars are going to collide,
Oh goodness,
and
that's a bit of,
do you believe in all that, or
Well, it depends where this source is coming from. These things can always be verified or Googled, and if it provide a link to go into. Um, it depends where it's coming from. There's an awful lot of rubbish as well. You've
yeah,
just got to verify it for yourself. And that's the whole thing about the media. It's not that there's some conspiracy theory going on, but I do think journalism has changed enormously, and particularly with the BBC, ITV, almost like they're told what to say. That's what we
yeah,
put over, and journalists have admitted to that. And it used to be different journalism. They'd go to the place, they'd talk to the people directly. It's changed,
yeah.
and there's something about when we hear all this, some of it is like fake news as well. It's not accurate. And it's important to get it verified.
Do
Yeah.
you think of what the media put in our papers, or what they do
Mm.
on the news say? Do you think that's scaremongering or
Of course
not?
it is. A lot of it is. I don't know why. I've got this idea that fear and control are two sides of the same coin, right? If people are fearful, they can be controlled more easily. And if people are very fearful, they tend to be quite controlling themselves, or have a lot of self-control, or try to have. And fear definitely suppresses the immune system. And I saw a lovely thing on Facebook, a kind of cartoon where a guy's looking at the TV and his voice is saying, you know, what can we do about fear? And then the guy just takes his remote control and clicks it, and the TV's gone off.
Oh, just
A lot of
don't.
people I know aren't watching the news so much now. They're just not.
Yeah, they're definitely not. Don't talk about remote controls with me at the moment. I'm going through a stage with my wife with remote control. I've for the last month or so, I know what she's doing, and I'm really grateful for it. What it is, I for a long time I haven't been sleeping well, and
Oh,
when I go to bed, I won't. I stick on the TV in bed and I
oh
watch.
goodness.
Yeah, and what happens is that I stay up till about 3:30 watching the television.
Oh, Steve, I'll
Yeah, I
try not to
know.
judge that one. Your wife's right. No, anything. For example, I'm no saint, but when I go to bed, I don't have any electronics on in the bedroom. My phone is switched off and outside the door. I understand that some people need their phone on overnight for emergency or whatever. I
Yeah,
get that.
yeah.
I do have a landline that if it rings, I would hear it from another room. But no, I don't have my phone on. It's out of the room. Everything's switched off because I think it's all going through our heads. It's affecting our brain waves hugely. And
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, and there is a lot of stuff, subliminal stuff going on TV. Well, advertising is, we know that, subliminal messages. It's always done that.
Yeah.
Yeah, to make us buy things.
Oh, it was just that I was going through a bad time,
Yeah.
and I was depressed. I was getting down. Then all of a sudden, I just thought, well, I watch TV, and hopefully, it would get me to sleep.
Ah.
And it did work actually. So
Oh, well, I suppose it does if it's boring enough, but also music can do that as well. I
yeah,
don't mean acid rock or acid rap and all that stuff, but I mean like classical something. And there are CDs or music you can buy to help you to go to sleep. I think Fiona, who you've interviewed on here, she's quite good at that kind of thing. She would have some options to suggest to you.
yeah, and I could always buy some tapes that would probably get me to
Yeah,
sleep
but you can
anyway.
actually find out, Google which ones are good for going to sleep to, and they do help enormously. Then they just go off when they finish, unless you put them on a loop somehow.
Well, I was on here. Before I broke up and had some time off. I had somebody on here. I felt like falling asleep, which I did.
Oh.
And about half, but that's it. Also, what I want to ask you before you go is about color therapy. Now we
talked about that, didn't we? And one of the episodes we gave the whole and people came in with questions. I enjoyed always talking with you, Steve, but that was made strong in my memory.
Yeah, because what I've been asked is since I've been asked on my emails, people are saying, when you're going to get Ysane back, and because we want to do like a program, different kind of topics and everything too.
Yeah.
So that's what I was going to speak to you about. And so that's what they're saying. They want to go on timing. They want to be kind of like asked about the timing about the stars and stuff like that,
sure.
whatever. So I said, well, I will talk to you about it. So let's have a meeting and we can talk about that.
What about the colour therapy and things?
Yes,
Things of that kind. Because I know you and I, we cover a lot of subjects indirectly, even though you obviously always ask about my astrology work. But it covers so many fields, but colours linked with it. And what colours work for us, not just what looks good on us. That's something different. The colour is an energy, it's a vibration. And it's like the rainbow, it's a messenger. In the Bible, the rainbow was a messenger. And it's colour. Yeah. And it's a language. And they're there to help us.
So I was in dating, I was thinking, because what I thought I'd do this year, last year, I've had quite a lot of people I was interviewing.
Yes.
So I thinned it all down and I thought, right, right. And I thought, right, this is the people that I want because it's more engaging. Because I like all the questions coming in from
people. So do I. And if I can't answer them, I just say, there's no point in saying we don't know. And I don't know everything.
Right. Where is it to? I've got a couple of questions here for you, actually. So let's see what we can do.
Let's see.
Ysane, Happy New Year, by the way. Would it be possible if you can tell me more about India? You were talking about India just now to Steve. What is India like to visit? Good question.
What a good question. It's. I've travelled to other more remote places like Africa, Arabic countries, things like that. India. Somebody once said, I always remember this when I was very young, that going to India accelerates what they call your karma, your spiritual growth. Whether that's true or not sure, but I do know I changed from being there. And it puts you more in touch with the heart center, I think, what I call the connectedness. Because in India, you get a tremendous sense of community.
Right.
A tremendous sense of community and family life. Now, we know in the West, that family life can be a very different story quite often, and people don't live close to their families or generations. And it's not always possible. People move around more. But in India, you do see this sense of community and helpfulness and respect for the older generation. All right. So I just feel it, part of me, well, it's only me, of course, but feel I've come home. It's a softness about it. There's a softness. And of course there are problems there and issues and goodness knows what else. We know that everywhere. And it's a big continent and each area is different. I think it's quite accepting. Look how in 1959, a great deal of land was given to the Tibetans in exile, you know, immediately. And the Dalai Lama was welcomed. Anyone escaping was welcomed from Tibet. There's an openness. And, you know, our driver we had there, because we had a driver to my friend I travelled with, she knew, and he was a very devout Hindu. Okay, don't know much about Hinduism, but when we went to the Buddhist monastery, and he was going to sleep in his car, a big car, you know, he could stretch out and sleep, and he liked to look after his car, not have it stolen or something. But anyway, they said immediately to him, the monks, "While you're here, you're our family, and this is your room." And he was really looked after. So you've got two very different religions, Buddhism and Hinduism, coming together, and he felt very comfortable there and was made to feel comfortable.
So
it was lovely, you know, and so I think there's an acceptance generally, and a great sense of humour. Oh, and Steve, the colour. You know, we tend to wear a lot of black and grey.
Yeah.
Oh, everywhere you go is colour.
Yeah.
You know, I don't know if that answers the question at all, but it's your own individual experience. But people are very drawn to India. The south and north are very different. So you say the south of England and north of England are very different, but.
Yeah, Becky said, "Hi, Steve. Nice to hear you come back. Could you ask ysane if what did she stay in? Was it in a hotel or was it one of the monks' place?"
Right.
Well, yeah.
Well, this is a monastery, which is quite close. Not many people go there. There is in the Tibetan settlement outside, there are Chinese, and they sometimes even disguise themselves as monks to try and, you know, and spreading lies, you know, spreading stuff, saying the Dalai Lama is spreading lies, which is rubbish, you know, if nothing else. He's a very, very good person. And so I think, you know, it has to be careful, big permits to stay there. So it's a kind of closed monastery. It's a teaching monastery. And the moment the little ones training to be monks have come out of not just Tibet, but Nepal, Sikkim, Ladakh, because quite often the second son of a family becomes a monk. And they do that, and they can leave at 18 without any judgment whatsoever. They get a fantastic community there, you know, looked after.
Yeah.
And one of the older monks looks after a little one. It's quite lovely to see because these monks are celibate, but they get to be a parent as well, you know. It's lovely.
Yeah.
Okay. No, so I was there and I was given a room when a monk gave me his room, and it was beautifully clean and everything. And it was lovely. And because my friend sponsors monks in their education, it was a great honor they felt for her to come, you know, and bring me as well. But the other places, on the way up the southwest coast, we hardly saw a white person because we were staying in places out of the way that my friend had contacts and doing tours in India many times, and we were staying in quite lovely places. But there were Indians there. And also the quietness. And most Indians like to eat in their rooms. So we're having the restaurant, if you like, outside to ourselves. So there was this gentleness and kindness and friendliness and the quietness, you know, which was extraordinary. So we stayed at these little, what I call resorts, but not as we know them. And we travelled up that southwest coast. And I can't tell you the beauty, Steve, the tea and coffee plantations. They take a great pride in their environment. Everywhere you go, you see these notices about the environment. Yeah.
Beautiful.
It is beautiful. It's not perfect. Of course it isn't. But I think you go there and you go into a kind of time and space warp. So for me coming back, even with 5.5 hours time difference, it was more, I think, obviously the drop of temperature from 30 down to what we've got now. But more than that, it was the culture, the atmosphere, the foods, of course, which are all fresh. All the food is fresh, picked that day or whatever, you know. A lot of it's vegetarian, gentle curries, and it's fresh. It's not processed. So, and I didn't get a stomach bug at all. It's very clean there. We have this image of India as not being so from the past, but oh no, it's good.
Brilliant.
So I do recommend anyone to go. Yeah. It's about, I flew into Bangalore, it's 11-hour flight, you know, but one can do that.
Is that expensive?
Yeah, it can be, yeah. It can be, it just depends on the deals. After lockdown, things have got expensive, but I really wanted to go to help people there and, you know, in the Tibetan settlement and things. And my friend really got us some very good deals, if you like, because of the contacts she has.
Brilliant, really good. Right, okay, we got to go, guys. But
Okay.
thank you so much for telling us about, about your kind of like stay in India and
Mhm.
and what you do and everything. What we'll
Thank you.
do, me and Yazan will get together and
Yeah,
we
let's
will
have a
talk.
chat.
Yeah,
Mhm.
and we'll see what we can do to help you guys out there.
Oh,
So
yeah, I want to help. Anything I can do to help the listeners, watchers, definitely.
yeah, okay. So
All
I'm
right,
gonna
Steve.
go, and I'll
All right.
speak to you a bit later. Bye bye for now.
Look forward to that, Steve. Goodbye for now to all of you.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye.